Hello, hello, and thank you for joining me live. I want you to tell me in the chat if any of this sounds familiar. Sorry, can I just add something? I'm sorry if this might be off topic. I might be wrong here, but I was thinking maybe we could consider a different approach. Sorry if that's a bad idea. Or I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm a bit confused about this report. It's probably a silly question, but could you just explain this part again? Sorry, I even have to ask. Or, sorry, I was just saying, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. One more. I'm really sorry, but I don't think I can take on another project right now. I know this is important. I really, really apologize. I wish I could do more to help. Does any of that sound familiar? Type yes in the chat. And as you're joining, say hello. Let me know where you are watching from. Hey, Amber, great to have you here. So maybe you have fallen into this trap of over apologizing. Maybe you have found yourself saying, I'm sorry too much for things that do not merit an apology in the first place. This can be a bad habit that actually morphs into a reflex reaction. It's a very self defeating pattern that can not only be exhausting to you, but also to everyone around you, whether that's your colleagues, your boss, even your family and friends. And that's exactly what we are here to talk about today. So say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Emily, great to have you. Peter, great to see you here. Say hello in the chat. As I'm going along, let me know what is resonating with you, what's standing out to you. Before we go any further, I should introduce myself. I am Melody Wilding. I'm an executive coach. I'm the author of a book called Trust Yourself, Stop Overthinking and Channel Your Emotions for Success at Work. And I'm also the creator of a program called Resilient. And it is a first of its kind, really comprehensive program to help sensitive leaders and high achievers, people I call sensitive strivers, regain their confidence, master their emotions, and reach their full potential at work. And today is a really, really exciting day because Resilient has just opened today for early enrollment. So we are having a round that starts January 18th, 2024. If you are at all interested or curious about that, there is a QR code here on the screen. You can take out your phone, open the camera app that will bring you right to the page. You can head to melodywilding.com/resilient. And I only run this program once or twice a year. We have about 17 spots still left available. So they are going quickly. So if you are interested in joining us, make sure you head to that QR code or to melodywilding.com/resilient. I want you to just think about, to imagine how much further you could go in your career without things like imposter syndrome, insecurity, perfectionism, self doubt holding you back. How much more fulfilled, productive, effective you could be if you got out of your own way. That's what we focus on in Resilient. We have a very powerful and unique combination of curriculum that is tailored to you as a sensitive striver, weekly coaching with me and my executive co-coach, Wendy Carey, and a high-level, very active community, a brain trust of other sensitive strivers who all along this journey are going to help you trust yourself, to use your sensitivity to fuel your success instead of self-sabotage. So we want you to be able to go from feeling helpless to empowered, from insecure to confident, from overthinking everything to focused, and from emotionally spiraling to balance and grounded. So like I said, early enrollment opened today for Resilient, and the early enrollment rate of $500 off is only available until basically this time next Tuesday. So if you are at all interested, like I said, the spots are going fast. We're about 30% full so far. Head to melodywilding.com/resilient. You can also find a time to book a call with me there. It's no pressure, no strings, just us talking about your goals and any questions you have. And remember that QR code is also here on the screen, and that will take you right to the page as well. All right. Now, speaking of improving your confidence, today we are here to talk about how to stop over apologizing at work. Let me say hello to some of you in the chat. If you are just joining, say hello. Let me know where you are watching from. We have a couple people here from New York. Peter, great to see you. Sherry, Tanya in Australia. Thanks. It's pretty early in the morning for you, I think. So thanks for getting up with us. Claudia, great to have you. Rashmi, good to see you here. Sarah said, I love your book, Melody. I have recommended it to many colleagues. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that. That is the highest compliment an author can get. So I appreciate it. Now, over apologizing at work. This happens when we say sorry excessively, often and specifically for situations that do not warrant an apology. It's saying sorry for things like occupying space, saying sorry when someone bumps into you, or for normal workplace interactions like needing clarification or needing help with something. Apologizing for the actions of other people, saying sorry for situations or mistakes other people made, taking on unnecessary responsibility for the actions of your colleagues. Apologizing before you express an opinion. When you say, sorry, but I just think, or sorry, I wanted to offer XYZ. Or even apologizing for speaking at all in a meeting, even when it's entirely appropriate to do so. Overusing sorry or apologies in your emails or in your messages. Apologizing when replying to something, asking a question, giving feedback. Apologizing when you receive constructive criticism or feedback, even when it's meant for learning and development. Saying sorry when you are assigning tasks or you're following up on a deadline, as if your normal responsibilities are an imposition on other people. So I want to hear in the chat, how does over apologizing show up for you at work? Maybe it's one of those situations I mentioned. Maybe it's something else. Go ahead and type in the chat, how does over apologizing show up for you at work? And hey, Jen from St. Pete, Farial in Calgary, great to see you. So how does over apologizing show up for you? Go ahead, type in the chat. And remember, as I'm going along, please share what is resonating with you. Help your neighbor out. If you hear something that's relevant or important, type it in the chat so you can share with everyone. Now, while I'm waiting for those to come in, because I have a little bit of a delay on my side, here's the thing with over apologizing, especially as a sensitive striver. While you may think you're being kind and polite, this habit can come from a desire to want to avoid conflict, to ensure there is always harmony, even if that comes at the cost of your own voice or opinion. It can come from a fear of making mistakes. It's usually a sign of a lack of confidence or an inability to be assertive. It sometimes shows that you're very dependent on external validation, because apologizing could sometimes subconsciously be used as a way to seek assurance. So when you say, I'm sorry, are you really hoping a coworker or your boss will say, oh, you have nothing to apologize for. You're doing a great job. Now, let me check in with some of you about how this is resonating for you. Susan said the areas you mentioned. Let's see. Jen said before it comes up when I ask a question in a meeting. Rashmi said when there's an overlapping conversation in a meeting, definitely happens more in the virtual world for sure. Tanya, inadvertently starting emails with apologies. Hello, Mohammed in Egypt. Susan in New Hampshire. Great to have you here. Now, of course, apologizing is a very powerful, much needed tool when we actually make a mistake, and we need it for healthy relationships, right? We have to have that humility and self-awareness to know when we need to make amends for our mistakes. But overusing it can actually dilute a real apology's meaning and impact. And it can really affect how other people not only see you, but how you see yourself. So over apologizing differs pretty significantly from regular apologizing, specifically in the frequency, how much you do it, the context, when and where you do it, and the effect, the impact for you or for others. So I want to explore some of the key differences here. So let's take regular apologizing, appropriate apologizing first. So when you are appropriately apologizing, you're doing it in the right context. Again, where you have made a mistake, you've caused someone a significant inconvenience. It's a sincere acknowledgement of a error or some sort of misjudgment. A regular apology or an appropriate apology has a proportionate response. So the apology is proportionate to the situation. It's a genuine expression of remorse for an action or an oversight that matches that situation. Healthy boundaries. Regular apologizing rather respects personal boundaries and other people's responsibilities. It doesn't involve taking responsibility for things that are beyond your control, that are someone else's responsibility or someone else's scope. And appropriate apologizing has a positive impact. Resolution of a conflict, your relationship improves, there's greater trust, a sense of closure or reconciliation. Yeah, Susan was saying, I use over apologizing to receive validation and to feel comfortable and in harmony. I completely understand that, and very, very common with sensitive strivers. So, Susan, thank you for sharing that too. Okay, so we talked about appropriate apologizing. Let's talk about over apologizing. How is this different? Well, it's excessive and it's misplaced. Over apologizing means saying sorry a lot, frequently, and in situations where an apology is not warranted. It often, like I said, happens out of habit. It almost becomes a reflex, and sometimes without even a specific reason or mistake that you're addressing. It can indicate low confidence. So, especially when you're doing it in contexts where it's not appropriate or necessary, it can reflect a lack of trust in yourself, a desire to avoid conflict at all costs, stem from a fear of being perceived negatively. Blurred boundaries, over apologizing, taking on guilt or responsibility for things that are beyond your control. People's reactions, external circumstances, minor inconveniences. And it has more negative consequences. Your self-esteem goes down. Other people may not respect you or believe you as much when you do say you're sorry. A lack of assertiveness. So those are the key differences: context and necessity, self-perception and impact, and the effect on your relationships. So what do you do? How do you begin to curb or uncondition this sort of knee-jerk habit that you have to over-apologize? So much of this comes down to trusting yourself. There's a reason I wrote a book on this, and it's at the core of what we go through in the Resilient Coaching Program. You get best-in-class training from me, from my executive co-coach, Wendy, and support to leave people-pleasing, overthinking behind so you can actually enjoy your success without so much stress. And remember, as I mentioned at the top here, Resilient is open for early enrollment, actually just opened today. About 30% of the spots are already filled out. I was looking at my board over there that has all the names of people who have joined on it. So if you are at all interested in that, time is of the essence. We have the QR code here on the screen. You can head to your phone, open up the camera app, head to that page, or just go to melodywilding.com/resilient. All right. Of course, we would love to have you in this program to work with you on this more closely. But today, what I want to do is give you some initial insights to set you on the path to overcoming this habit of over apologizing. As a sensitive striver, it's crucial to understand that not every situation requires an apology. So before rushing to just say, I'm sorry, you need to assess if you genuinely made a mistake. Did you offend someone? Did you highly inconvenience them? Or are you apologizing because you want to save face? Are you apologizing for someone else's expectations, mistakes, potential reaction? So ask yourself, am I really at fault here? Is an apology necessary? Or am I just trying to ease the tension, fill the silence to soothe my own anxiousness here? And even just this momentary reflection can allow you a moment to think, to consciously slow down your thinking and, frankly, your speech. Slowing to give a response not only gives you more time to think before you act, which is actually a strength of sensitive strivers, but it also helps you exude more confidence because you're not just rushing to a response out of fear. So remind yourself that being overly apologetic doesn't necessarily make you seem more polite. In fact, it can diminish your presence in professional settings. All right, let me check in with the chat. And as I'm going along, please share what is resonating with you here. Susan was asking, apologizing when my child is sick and I can't get into work. Susan, I would say that is not necessarily something you need to apologize for. If you wanted to take a more assertive approach, you can say, my child is sick today. That means I won't be able to make it into work. I've arranged for coverage for these certain meetings, and I look forward to being back in later this week. You don't have to include an apology in there at all. It's something that happens in the normal course of life. So that would be my take on the situation. Now, when you are first beginning to work on this habit of undoing over apologizing, start with your written communication. Written communication gives you the chance to edit and revise what you want to say before you send it. And having more control, having more time to deliberate reduces the likelihood that you'll just reflexively respond out of fear or out of discomfort. So write your emails or your messages as you normally would, and then review them a second time for any of those apologies. And look for situations where you might have said sorry unnecessarily, or like I just mentioned to Susan, where you could cut it out altogether and your message still has the same meaning. I see that more times than not. Another one of my favorite tricks or hacks is to switch apology for gratitude. To switch I'm sorry for thank you. I'm sorry I can't make it becomes thank you for thinking of me. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. Thanks for your patience. So some other language swaps you could make, instead of sorry, can I add something? Try I'd like to add something. Instead of sorry, I didn't understand that. Try could you please clarify that point? Instead of sorry, this might be a bad idea, but try here's another idea we can consider. Do you see how those swaps are so much more assertive, not in an aggressive way? They're just strong and matter of fact. All right, let me check in with the chat again. Amber was saying, this is all resonating and applying to my one-on-one tomorrow when I address some things that I've been sitting on and am making bullet points about. It will be an apology-free session since I have not made any mistakes and it is not my issue if addressing a situation someone else caused is uncomfortable. I love that, Amber. I'm so glad this is giving you insight. So we've talked a lot about how you shouldn't apologize when you haven't done anything wrong. But what if you do genuinely make a mistake? You still don't need to undermine yourself to make amends, especially when it's a pretty non-consequential oversight, a minor inconvenience, or a difference in preferences. So instead of leading with an apology, you might start by acknowledging the situation. So I realized I overlooked the deadline for that report, followed by a solution. I've already started working on it and I'll have it done by tomorrow. So a few more ways or a few more scripts for what this could look like, or sound like rather. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll ensure it's corrected right away. That's one of my favorites. As someone who puts a lot of content out there online, I often have people catch my grammatical errors or omitted words, for example. And I always appreciate when people point that out, but I don't apologize. I don't say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My apologies. I say, thank you so much for pointing that out. We'll get that corrected right away. You might say, I see where an error occurred here. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll have a revised version to you shortly. Or I understand the oversight now and I'll get on addressing it. That was my miss. I'm on it. Now that we've identified the issue, here's how I propose we handle it. Or I see the concern now. Let's discuss next steps from here. So even when you do make a mistake, you don't need to undermine yourself to make amends. The next tip is to allow silence. Embracing silence can be such a powerful tool. In conversations, we often rush to fill in silences. How many of you are guilty of that? Give me a +1 in the chat if you are someone who rushes to fill in silences, who may fill in sentences for people. Sometimes with apologies, we do this because silence feels uncomfortable. But silence can be very powerful. A thoughtful pause, a moment of reflection, even a sign of confidence and commanding the dynamic of a conversation. So one easy thing to do is to start by practicing with silence in low stakes situations. Casual conversations with family, with friend, with coworkers you're comfortable with. Notice the urge you have to fill in the silence and consciously resist it. It's hard. It's hard, but like a muscle, you can build it up. And a funny anecdote I always like to tell. So my background is as a therapist and a social worker. And when you are in training for counseling people, you actually practice sitting in silence and not responding right away. It's really painful. It's really tough. But I hope that goes to show you that it's a skill. It's a skill and it takes practice. Yeah, and Amber was saying practice, practice, practice. Christine, glad that's resonating with you. Yeah. So this moment of silence can give other people a time to pause as well. So after making a statement, presenting an idea, setting a boundary, allow that moment to hang there. This gives other people time to absorb what you've said. It can make your words carry more weight. So instead of viewing silence as awkward, see it as space where other people's ideas or where your ideas can land. And it's a moment for other people to digest and respond. All right, I see there's a few questions coming in the chat. Let's see. Rashmi asked, I have to hop off to attend a work meeting. Am I able to get a recording? Absolutely. Rashmi, you can come back to this page and the replay will be right here so you can watch it anytime. Susan said, what would be an appropriate response to an angry boss because I missed work due to a sick child? She's angry about it. Case by case situation. Susan, you know your boss best. However, I would acknowledge how they feel. I would say, I realize this is a big inconvenience and I can understand why you may be upset or you may be annoyed that I'm not able to be there or we don't have coverage for this meeting, what have you. At the same time, I have to care for my sick child. I will be out today. And then, like I said earlier, focus on the solution. Focus on, I've already got backup for this XYZ. So I think the important thing when someone is angry is to acknowledge and validate how you can see they might feel that way. Okay. Let's see. What are some ways, Farial, I hope I'm saying that correctly, asked, what are some ways to shed the feeling of worry as if you've lost respect in making a mistake or slight oversight, even if it's inconsequential? So, Farial, I'm going to take that from the perspective of you worrying about whether you've made a mistake because you're insecure about it. I think with what I'm hoping to get across with this discussion about over apologizing is the fact that you teach people how to treat you. How others will pick up cues on how they should feel based on how you respond to a situation. I'm sure we've all been in situations where you responded very apologetically and you were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did this. And the other person then got annoyed and said, yeah, I can't believe you did that. What a silly mistake. What a silly oversight. Versus if you responded to something from a place of strength and said, oh, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll fix that right away. You act like it's a non-issue and keep moving forward. And that suggests to the other person the way that they should respond. So you teach people how to treat you. How you respond will influence how they respond. And there's always what you do afterwards. We can't avoid making mistakes. Sometimes we can control how we respond to it, how we talk about the solutions we're going to put in place, how we go a little bit above and beyond next time to make sure we make a good impression. All right, next tip is to put some sort of a reminder on your desk or your workstation. This might be a note with something like think before apologizing or some sort of visual cue that prompts you to be mindful before you deliver that apology. You can also ask a colleague, a mentor, someone you trust to gently point out when you are excessively apologizing. Having someone help you become aware of this in real time can be very, very helpful. Sometimes we're not aware of our own habits and knee-jerk responses unless someone points them out. So a trusted colleague, a mentor can really be useful to provide that real-time feedback. So choose someone who understands, who respects your goals, who you interact with regularly. Explain why you're asking for their help, how they can best support you. Maybe you agree on a subtle sign, maybe the person raising a finger, for example, or some other private way that they can point out, they can bring to your attention when you're veering over to that over apologizing. A particular phrase, a gesture, a quick message. And after this person points that out, take a moment afterwards to reflect on the situation. What triggered the over apology and how could you handle it differently next time? So there you have it, giving you a bunch of tips today to counter that habit of over apologizing. So let's review quickly what we've gone through. And I want to hear from you in the chat. What has stood out to you the most and what are you going to put into practice? So to curb that knee-jerk over apologizing habit, understand that not every situation requires an apology. Discern when an apology is needed versus when it's excessive. Start with your written communication because you have more control over that. Switch apology for gratitude. Even when you do make a mistake, you don't need to undermine yourself to make amends. Be straightforward. Allow silence. Place a reminder on your workstation or your desk as a prompt to help you think about, should I apologize here or is that not appropriate? And ask someone to gently point this pattern out to you. So what resonated with you the most? Let me know in the chat. Amber was saying, this is one of my favorite sessions and resonates so much for feeling guilty for addressing issues because you are more worried about being liked than respected or just doing your job. That's such a great way to put it, Amber. So we covered a lot today, what over apologizing is, why it happens, how it differs from regular apologizing, all of those tips to stop it. What resonated with you most in the chat? Tell me what action you're going to take. What are you going to put into practice? Because I always like to say insight without action is useless. And that's what we're all about here. Now, if you want 2024 to be the year that you build solid confidence so you can make clear, rational decisions where you feel safe, disconnecting from work, you allow yourself to rest, you have an identity and a life beyond your work, you break free from some of those people-pleasing patterns that keep you overextended. You're able to tackle disagreements and conflict with other people with ease. All of this and lots more is what we cover inside of Resilient. And that is my signature 3-month program for sensitive strivers that officially opened today. Remember, the QR code is here on the screen. You can take out your phone, go to the camera app. It will bring you right to that page. Or you can head to melodywilding.com/resilient. And this program, over the last 4 years, it's helped hundreds of sensitive strivers like you achieve. We've had skip level promotions, 6-figure bonuses, and most of all, more importantly, is the internal transformations, helping people become sensitive strivers specifically, become happier and more secure in themselves. And again, early enrollment is open now. This is one of your opportunities to get one of the spots. 30% are already taken, and to secure that early bird rate. So if by the end of Q1 2024, you want to feel more confident, you want to feel more secure in your own skin, more assertive, to have more inner peace and presence, then definitely check out the QR code, head to melodywilding.com/resilient. You can also book a call directly with me there. Now, this program is designed keeping in mind the unique challenges and strengths of you as a sensitive striver. It is not just another cookie cutter coaching program. It is really a supportive community, a space where you can learn, grow, change, evolve alongside other sensitive strivers. You are guided by me. I am your mentor and your coach. And you have people in there who have traveled similar paths as you. And we are all about building that inner strength, mastering your mind and your emotions, and leaning into helping you be more who you are so that self-criticism doesn't stand in the way of your success. So as we wrap up today, I'm so glad this has resonated with so many of you. I'm so happy to see your comments in the chat. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember that you, as a sensitive striver, with all of your sensitivity and your ambition, you are extraordinary. You bring so many gifts to your workplace, the communities around you, your family, your friends. And I would love to work together with you to ensure that the voice inside your head recognizes that too. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you, hopefully, inside of Resilient and to helping you becoming a more confident, self-assured version of yourself. All right, everyone, that is it for today. I will see you very soon. Take care.